Ji, Waheguru Ji Khalsa, Waji Fateh again, Ji. Ravinder Singh in Columbus. Um, I think who I have online is Paramjit Singh Veerji, Gurjeet Singh Veerji from Australia. I have Dilpreet Singh and myself. Have I missed anybody? Evidently not. ठीक है जी. So I missed the discussion last week, so I'm not as well oriented as some of you may be, but I've been told that we are going to start from the fifth slok here, Turk Tariqat Janiye, Hindu Ved Puran. But before we do that, perhaps let's sort of recast the whole bavan akhari that we've discussed so far, just as a matter of context. So it seems to me that the bavan akhari, the practice of using the alphabet to describe deeper meanings, or at least point to deeper meanings, is an old tradition, from what I understand. And here we have Kabirji at the very outset telling us that बावन अक्षर लोग तरह सबके चीनी माए ये अक्षर खिर जाएंगे वो अक्षर इनमें ना आए. I think there is a message here for the entire Bani, which at least what I would like to put out there is the fact that bavan achar log tarah simply is referring to speech, to language, to the sounds that we are familiar with in our ordinary life and the sounds that we make in order to communicate. I think what he's saying here, and I think that is, I'm throwing this out there, hoping that one of you will pick on this and perhaps develop it further. It seems to me that the entire bavan akhari is in fact an attempt to tell us that no system of thought is going to give you any insight into reality. In other words, any system of thought is in fact going to be some sort of a hindrance, because reality, or ultimate reality, is at bottom inconceivable. It is not of the thought. So therefore, for us to get trapped in any kind of thinking process is not going to get us there. And we have other allusions to the same thing in Guru Nanak's Bani as well. So that said, I think we will start with Turk Tariqat Janiye, Hindu Ved Puran, and move on from there. I think there are, it seems to me that this is quite mystical. Kabirji's Bani here is quite mystical. There are pointers to, as we will see when we go down, that he is actually using some very mystical symbols to describe an inner process. But until we get there, let's start with that. Will someone take the initiative to actually read out the the lines and help us understand the sort of literal meaning? Akhri arth pehlon kar liye. Dilpreet, do you want to take the initiative?
No, before you go there, Ravinderji,
Anji.
Because you posed the question at the outset, this is the understanding, this is the context we are talking about. Bavan Achar, Jovi had a line I don't have in front of me. And let's dwell on that a bit. Is Kabir Sahib is saying that all modes of communication, as you said, sound, speech, and writing, wouldn't get us anywhere? I think this is the consensus, or this is thought we also came up with. And I just want to just dwell a little bit on that one. We are talking about any mode of communication. And if you talk any mode of communication, would experience be part of that one? Would you say experience part of how we communicate?
Are you asking me that?
Yeah, no, because it just came up to my mind. No, I'm not asking. I'm just throwing it over. No, I shouldn't. Oh, yes, I'm just throwing it over.
Certainly, I think that is indeed a very worthy consideration. Before we go there, I want to make sure that Dilpreet and Gurjeet Singh Virji are at least in broad agreement with what you and I have said at the outset, that the way I'm reading Kabirji's sort of word of caution, if you will, that "ye akhar khir jayenge, oye akhar in mein aaye," it seems to me that what he's suggesting is that because thought and language are very closely tied to one another. In fact, one is a representation of the other. So that's why I said any thought system is going to be a hindrance. Whether experience is a part of that system, I don't know. I'm going to throw it out there. And it may be a good point to start. Dilpreet, do you want to take that thought and give it a shot?
No, this is a very interesting thing that I I think that what we experience is also, or experience is only our true teacher, and everything lies in the experience. So if we take it that way, our real teacher or our real guide is our experience, because we learn something and when we do it, we experience it, and that is how we follow it. So we are always following our experience. Otherwise, I think in that context, yes. And then when you were saying, right, this bavan akshar lok tray sab kach inhi mahe. So I I I think I concluded little bit different that yes, the creator is in the creation and creator exists in his creation, but even this creation or this form in which we see the creation, this can destroy itself and it can get recreated. But when this creation is destroyed and recreated, the creator is not part of that, and then he will still remain and he will still be in the new creation. That's what was the other thing which I conceived after our discussion.
Anji.
No, that raises another question, Dilpiji. You said, sorry, I'll pause. Okay.
Anji, Paramjit Singh, Virji, let's give Gurjeet Singh ji an opportunity to put his thought forward, and then we'll come back to you, and then you can add to that. Anji, Virji.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ
Anji.
These experiences are from the Bhagats, who has attained something. For us, it is acceptance. If we can accept that this is the truth, whatever it is it's truth for us, and then we build up our experiences from there. So, the best way to give a knowledge is through akhar, because then you can, stabilize the knowledge. If it's a verbal knowledge, it just can go through another form that people can either say I saw 10, another one can say 20, another one can get 30. So in the written form, at least it is in the stable form, in the akshar form. And when there were no akshars, then that time people used to only tell verbally. So now we have akshars. So with the akshars, we can jot down the experiences, and the followers need to follow it, accept it, and then create an experience out of that. So they have tried to jot down the experiences in the words, but we don't need to worship words. There is something hidden in the words which we need to extract. The words will be there, but there is something which we need to extract out of them, because the knowledge about what they are talking is not within the letters. It's something which we need to extract out of it.
Yeah, no, that is a good point, and I think that is something that now with Paramjit Singh Virji gone, talking about experiences. So Dilpreet, before I hand off to you, I just want to put a thought out there. You talked about experiences being our biggest teachers, being our biggest teacher. No doubt true. But here is a thought that occurs to me. And I began with the unreliability or the inadequacy, not really the unreliability, but the inadequacy of words to actually tell us about reality as it is. So, as Veer Gurjeet Singh has said, we have to extract some meanings out of words. We have no other way, really, other than words to capture knowledge. And these are pointers to an experience that cannot be captured perhaps in words. But here's my question. Even experience. So if you take experience, experience is primarily of the senses. All of our experience is coming through our senses. How reliable are our senses? Because your senses can easily mislead you. So how would you say that whatever you're experiencing is indeed the truth? Any thoughts there?
No, that started a thought process because when Veer Gurjeet Singh Veerji was saying that ye akhar khir jayenge, wo akhar inme nahi, that okay, when this realization will come, then there is another way to look at this is that then we will not have the words to capture or to explain that moment, that experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is other way. But I think that is where Gurbani is the guide, and Gurbani is that kaswati or that measure which will tell us that whatever we are experiencing with our senses is in line in hukam or it is outside of hukam. I think those thing or those tests or those what we say the output of our senses or the expectations, if they are in line with Gurbani or not, that is where Gurbani will guide us, that what we are experiencing.
But let me play devil's advocate then.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you try and match it against the litmus test of Gurbani, it is still your interpretation of Gurbani,
That's correct.
right? So could it be that we are very good at deceiving ourselves?
We are very good at that,
Yeah,
and that is why all of this is happening.
yeah.
That is why there are different. There is this fight going on
Mm-hmm.
because we are very good at that, and especially we Sikhs are. I think we are perfect in that. Okay, that
ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ
because
ਕੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ ਗੁਰਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ?
before I hand over to Birji,
ਹਾਂਜੀ
right?
ਹਾਂਜੀ
So I had one more thing, right?
Mm.
See, I was reading one article which said that we are perfect because I think Kabir Sahib says, "But puj puj Hindu muhe,
Wow.
Turk right muhe and Turk muhe sir nai, so ole jare oile gade teri gat dohu na pai."
Mm-hmm.
So what we have done is we are we are extreme in Buddha Puja also, and we are extreme in Sirnai also. Okay, so we have taken both of these two extremes of these practices which are condemned. So yes, because see, that is what one group will say, that saying Vaheguru is the only way out. Other one will say Kirtan is only there. Somebody will say Katha is only there. Because we have taken one line or one thing out of context and we have used it to our favor.
Right.
Anji, now we can go to good.
Hanji Veer ji, Gurjeet Singh ji, before I let you I want to pick up a little bit on what Dilpreet has said, ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੁੱਤ ਪੂਜਾ ਵੀ ਧਾਰਨ ਕਰ ਲਈਏ ਤੇ ਸਿਰ ਨਿਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਧਾਰਨ ਕਰ ਲਈਏ. We have perfected that art. But and then he also brought up the fact that we are fighting amongst ourselves between Vaheguru karna chahiye ya Kirtan karna chahiye or both or whatever. So I want to add to that a little bit, and that is there really a methodology that will lead you to God, so to speak, to put it very simply? Because if a methodology or a practice alone can lead you to God, then that practice in some ways becomes bigger than God itself, right? That is why Guruji talks about grace, because no methodologies, no practice is going to actually make that happen without grace. Hanji, with that, I'm passing it on to you.
Hanji, I think Virji has very rightly said, and you agree too, that Shabad by Bhagat Kabir ji, which he says, "But puj puj Hindu moh Turk moh sir nai hoile jare hoile gade teri gat dohu na pai." That they are thinking that if I burn the body, or the other one says, "No, I will bury the body." These are the two reasons for the Atma to get mukt. But he says none of them has actually obtained the truth. थोड़ा सा noise है. Just excuse me. मैं minute car च बैठना.
Hanji, Hanji.
So the Pauri which we are going to do now, it tells us quite in detail what is required. It doesn't put any condition on anyone, and it actually elaborates what has happened in the past. He says, Turk tariqat jani hai Hindu Ved Puran. So there were methods available before Gurbani, and he has particularly used the word Turk. Turk is different to the real Islam.
Hanji, Virji, carry on.
Hanji, this gives us a historical aspect as well, that before Gurbani was written or spoken by Bhagats, there were some historical texts, written forms were available. The Muslims used to do this through Turk tariqat. Turk word has come because the real face, bright face of Islam was when everything, I think, came to Turkey. I think Constantinople is there the place, which was the center, and was later attacked by the Genghis Khan, and he basically spoiled everything there. But he says still, within their text, it is written that if you can control your mind, man samjhavan karne, we need to read a book, a holy book. So in this context, all the yogis who think that we can survive without a book, they are out basically, because they don't have a granth like this. And in the Hindus, their books are written even before Quran. Turk tariqe janiye Hindu Ved Puran, but the whole thing which we have to ultimately use these books is for man samjhavan karne. The whole aim of writing these religious scriptures was that your mind comes under your control. That's the only thing you have to do. The rest is all grace. So this is how I look at it, because you said yes. If the methodology is there, the methodology is only going up to controlling your mind. That is jap. Once the jap is complete, then there is aradhana. And there are shloks like when Faridji says, Tan sukha pinjar thiya taliyan khunde kaag. He says, I finished my jap. Ajay so Rabbana baudiyo. But that grace is not happening now. So we have to do our effort to start with. That's why the scriptures were written. Man samjhavan karne. This is the main theme. If we can control our mind and tell him that you have a moon, Allah or Ram, then I think he will be on the right track. That's how I see it.
Hanji, thank you,
Thank
Ji.
you.
Hanji, Paramjit Singh Virji, are you back? Can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
Please.
So I know that you missed out on a piece of the discussion, which was around experience. I know that you. ये थोड़ा फिर शुरू हो गया जी काम.
Oh, they're testing it. I think the building.
अच्छा.
They're testing it, so it's coming and going. Yeah.
हाँ जी. So we might have to put you on mute because.
Sure. Please do that.
हाँ जी. अच्छा. Dilpreet, so since you're the only other person here, let me reach out to you. So what Virji is saying here is that man samjhavan karne. So we have to obtain knowledge through the scriptures for the sake of controlling our own minds, and then the rest is grace. Now, it would lead me to believe from here, and I know I'm digressing a little bit today, but today may be a good day since it's just the three or four of us. If that is true, then it would follow from there that man mera ya man tuada. So everyone has their own man, and each man requires a particular way to be controlled. So how can one say that there is only one way of doing things? Would you agree?
And this is very interesting. See, when it says Turak Tariqat Janiye, Hindu Ved Puran, so in Japji Sahib also we have discussed Taram Khand, Gyan Khand, Saram Khand, Karam Khand, and Sach Khand.
Mm-hmm.
And in Hinduism it is Shariat, Tariqat, Marfat, and then they say Hakikat.
Hakikat, yeah.
Right? And then in I think Hinduism also there are only they have only three of them.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the way I was thinking this is that Turak Tariqat Janiye Hindu Ved Puran. So there is something which is written, and there is a piece of knowledge which is available for us. Either it is the representation of that piece, it is Guru Granth Sahib, or in Tariqat they are reading that knowledge, and Hindus are getting that knowledge from Ved or Puran. So it represents that knowledge is important. And then it is also saying man samjhavan karne kachuak padiye gyan. So I was thinking this kachuak, I got stuck that somewhat no, they are saying that whatever you are reading or whatever knowledge you are collecting, you have to do that with only one objective, that you have to apply it to yourself. And man samjhavan karne means that you have to follow that thing and you have to implement it. And now, as we were discussing grace, I was thinking and I was stuck on this. Then this is how I came out of it. That in a physics book or in a science book, there is a procedure which is there, that okay, if I follow how to do an experiment. Now, if so, Gurbani, this knowledge, it is again, it is the guidelines, it tells us that this is how we have to conduct an experiment. I have to collect this and do this and mix it with this. And when I do that in right proportion, and there may be, I may fail sometimes initially, but once all of these parameters are there, then this is the result. Now, if I write that experiment 20 times or if I keep reading them, it is not going to happen. So now when I take that procedure and I conduct the experiment and I do, or I bring everything, whatever is required or mentioned in right proportions, and conduct it in the same way, that is where the outcome has to come. That is where the hukam will play its role and grace will automatically happen. Okay. So that is how I was thinking of the grace, that if you bring the light, the darkness will automatically go away. And then once the light is there, the darkness is gone. So this Gyan and everything, I was trying to relate it with an method or the procedure for the experiment. And Man Samjhavan Karne is the implementation side where we have to conduct the experiment. And that is where in the hukam, the grace will automatically come, because that is how he operates. Thank you.
Anji, interesting. So let me play devil's advocate here, as I am wont to do. So a couple of things. Pehli gal ye hai कि the analogy of a physics experiment with an inner spiritual process may not be very apt. And here's why I think it's not very apt. Because in a scientific experiment, the input is very well defined, the process is defined, and you can pretty much replicate, anyone can replicate a physics experiment and actually derive the same output. So jede experiments already ho gaye, and you and I can actually replicate them. That is not true of an individual's inner spiritual journey. That's number one. The
No,
number
no,
two,
let's repeat that. Okay, what you said was that in an experiment, what is fixed, you said?
the inputs. You understand what the input is.
Right,
You know what the ingredients are
right,
in order to conduct the experiment. You know
okay,
what the process is, right?
okay.
But all I'm saying is that in the spiritual realm, in
Uh-huh,
let you mentioned a while ago that
uh-huh.
we are at odds with one another because we aren't even sure whether it is jap, whether it is kirtan, whether it is both, whether it is part of this, because we are not even in agreement as to what the input is in this process. So it creates all kinds of complications, right? It isn't that clear cut as a physics experiment might be, is what I'm trying to say.
No, no, I think it is very clear cut. Okay, now let's say you talked about the inputs, right? So if we read any any stanza or any shabad in Gurbani, it will talk about that what inputs we have to put. It will talk about that what ingredients we have to bring. It will talk about that what
But
process.
Dilpreet, hold on right there.
Mhm.
All of that will be interpreted by you differently than how I might interpret it. Okay? There is no objective measure for that. And I don't want to make this a one-way conversation. Let me pull in Paramjit Singh
Yeah,
Veerji.
and,
Uh,
yeah. And
हाँ,
also you're right on that. You see, the processes are very different.
हाँ
The
जी,
process you take that information inputs
हाँ
and
जी,
process it to get the outcome is going to be very different than me.
हाँ जी,
Okay, so I agree with what was said that you cannot bring physics very defined experiment
हाँ
into
जी,
an area where we have so many layers. Okay, and even the process itself are not very clearly defined. Inputs may be defined, and
हाँ जी.
outcome we can see, but the processes are so different we don't know the processes.
Yeah,
And
because you
I
see, Anji, because Dilpreet, the point is the way I metabolize or assimilate information is very different from the way you do it. You see,
No, no.
and this is not an equation where you can actually solve it. That so let's see what Gurjeet Singh Veerji has to say.
Okay.
Anji, are you there, Veerji? Did I lose him?
Okay. Let me check.
हाँ जी जी
Anji.
Hanji.
हाँ जी
So, did you get a chance to hear what we were talking about? We are
हाँ
digressing all over the place. So today, this
no,
is
it's
fairly
very
free.
nice.
This is all
It's
free
very
form. Okay, it's not any. We are going wherever the spirit is taking us.
means the limitation is we have started just वो है सब तो लखे ना कोई. The thing is, there's nothing like him. What we can say, as you're saying, in physics we know concrete things. Gravity, we know it's 9.8 seconds, and what is the other factors which scientists have. We know water is maximum density is at 4 degrees, and all these things have been discovered. But this is a hukam on the jad, which I say. This
Hmm.
is uh, non-sentient stuff, which we have means we are quite clever in finding that. Otherwise, whatever we are seeing around us, all the development, the technologies, all the hukam which we have somehow through Parmeshwar's grace, scientists have discovered it. But this is a very different field. Still, every time we say something, we have to put it in Maya because we have been given eyes, we have been given ears. So through all this, we try to relate the Brahm through Maya, but still he's not Maya. That's the biggest thing in it. The process, it says man samjhavan karne, which means manana. Man samjhavana is manda manana. Up to which level man accepts, there is no scale as such. Very hard to define. So yeah, there are too many parameters which are not defined, but still, there's a limitation of language. It's metaphoric as well, and we are not at that level, and our levels are very different. So yeah, I agree that it's too many variables in this, but we still try to find out some sort of common way, which is not easy because your understanding different to mine. And it also says in Gurbani, koi na ek jaisa something upaya, ki even two brains are, wisdoms are not at par. So yeah, we have all these, you can say, problems, which ultimately the result is that if I can subdue my mind, but that's just a concrete thing, how much I can subdue. Bhagat says, like Kabir says, Mehndi karke kar liya, that I have made such a paste like, like the Mehndi, but still he doesn't accept me. Aap pisai, I've crushed my mind even finer than the powder of that henna, but he doesn't accept it. So these are only, metaphoric. How much we have to crush the mind, it depends from person to person.
Hanji. Paranjit Singh Veerji, do you want to say anything else before I go to Dilpreet?
Yes, I have a general observation to make, and that is, I personally am very reluctant to, yes, I use science to understand Gurbani, but science is not my yardstick to say that everything has to be according to science. Let me give you an example. I was thinking about this thing today. All the scientific knowledge we have, if we go back to that, the foundation of all the scientific knowledge is what we learned in the basic sciences. That is physics, chemistry, social sciences, you call it, mathematical sciences, you call it. Now here, once you go to physical sciences, we make laws there which we take as granted, that these laws we don't know, but we accept it. You go to mathematical sciences, you got axioms there. That means these are truths we take and we don't know why these things are there. You go to chemistry, the chemical reactions taking place, we call properties. We take them there. The foundation, all these things which we are taking as granted are the things where hukam is prevailing according to me. That is, but science starts from there, science assumes that. So I have a difficulty when we make Gurbani subservient to science by using that yardstick. That's my general comment. But then other than that, again, going back to the fundamental issue which I raised many times, and I'm spending lots of time, which I will share with everybody once I have completed my thoughts on that. And the question comes is, if we take a academic route to understand mind, we will get nowhere, because the scientist, you call brain scientist, you call the physicist, you name anybody, philosophers have spent hundreds of years to understand mind. They have not come up with any defined, clear definition. But our role is not to pursue that route, but look at the word naam, word man has come 5,443 times in Guru Granth Sahib. The only way to understand for us is we have not to take one pankti. That's the difficulty I have. People take one pankti from here. You have to take collective. It's a holistic message in the Gurbani. It's not fragmented, or what we call as fragmented message. It is a holistic message, and a holistic message can only be plain when you take all the references and try to get the meaning of that. So man is one thing, and my understanding let me give you a crude understanding of mind. The way after reading some material, I just came up, which I'm putting together a crude definition, a working hypothesis for me to understand Gurbani. It is simply a collection of thoughts. Okay, we get all the stimuli from the environment. Our brains get all the stimuli from the environment, and based on that, it is just like a distributed process, and it creates thoughts. The collection of thoughts which are in our conscious mind become the conscious mind, and which are not in our conscious mind, I mean, we are not aware of that, goes in subconscious mind. And there comes a stage, once our mind becomes certainly mature to a certain threshold, it gets a certain threshold, it has a capability of feeding back into the brain. So it has that capability of providing input to the coming new thoughts which might be coming back.
Hanji, Veerji, if I have to interrupt you, you're getting into a very esoteric subject here.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
No. I think it is a subject worth considering, and I think what we should do is perhaps spend a couple of sessions discussing the concept of the mind according to Gurbani. Man da
Yeah.
sankalp jo hai Gurbani de vich, just simply care, the word man appears over 5,000 times. There is certainly good reason for us to understand that concept, to see what that is all about. But let's come back to what the discussion that Dilpreet triggered by using the analogy of science. Now, and you of course made a comment, and so did Gurjeet Singh Virji. I think I don't think that the idea here is that we are making Gurbani subservient to science. Science to us is simply another mode of inquiry. The problem arises when we begin to accept scientific, knowledge as dogma. It has become a dogma. It is another dogma today, just like religion has become dogma. And I think what distinguishes Sikhi is the fact that we are always on a developmental process. That is the beauty of Sikhi to me, because that is the meaning of being a Sikh. You're never there. You're always on the process, because you can never be there. I mean, there is no destination to get to. You're always on this process, because we are now discussing something that we call Vaheguru or Akal Purkh, is something that our senses really cannot understand. And yet there is a way for us to commune with it. And that is what we are trying to figure out. So I would say to you, Dilpreet, that even though, we can't, I don't think a scientific experiment is what we are doing. It is nonetheless an experiment, but it is an experiment of one. Each one of us is a lab of one and an experiment of one. Hanji, you want to add anything more?
No, I think that is where I completely agree. It is not that 1 plus 1 will be 2. What I was saying was that Gurbani talks about a process, and I was relating it to an experiment that you have to go through the process to get the results. See, Gurbani talks about Dharam Khand, Gyan Khand, Saram Khand, Karam Khand, and Sach Khand. So it talks about the progressions. Then we have already discussed Jat Pahara, Tiraj Sanyar, Ahran Mat, Ved Hathiyar. So it talks about the ingredients, it talks about the process. See, everywhere it says that Gaviye, Suniye, Man Rakhiye Pao, and then it gives the process results that Dukh Parhar, Sukh Kar Le Jaye. Then, so when I read these lines, so I am seeing that it says Panda toye baith tup devo to dude ko jao. It talks about the process that first you have to prepare the land, you have to sow the seed, and then you have to water it, and this is how it is going, that then only the results will come. So I was trying to relate the grace part, that we have to do our effort and we have to apply Gurbani and follow the process, whatever makes sense to us, and then only this grace will happen. So I was using that to represent that how grace is going to happen and what we have to do and how we have to be the path to the grace. So that was the objective to using that scientific experiment.
Can I just
Very well
jump
said.
in? Can I just Dilpreet, very nicely you explain those things, but my thinking is what you're talking about is just the framework. It is not. It is not. Guru Sahib has not given us a detail every step which has to follow. It's
Right,
just
right.
that's just a framework. Within framework, we have to operate. You are going to operate in that framework very differently than what I'm going to operate.
Hanji.
Okay,
That is
sorry.
right. See, that is I was using that analogy that to get the grace, we also need to put that effort. That is where I was using that experiment concept, that that grace and the hukam. So we have to do our effort and we have to play our role, and
So,
then, Haji.
so Dilpreet, as I listen to you, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੀ ਯਾਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਈ ਆਉਂਦੀ. Maybe Gurjeet Singh Veer ji or one of you can remind me ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਿਰਫ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਈ ਕਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਰਿਸ਼ਰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਯਾਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਪਰ ਕਈਆਂ ਸੁਤਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਜਗਾ ਛੱਡਦਾ ਆ ਕੇ ਆਪੀ।
Yes, there is, yeah.
There is a tuk, in
Yes.
Bani. So, Gurjeet Singh Virji, do you recall that tuk?
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਉਹ ਫਰੀਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਲੋਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ।
So how do you explain that ਕਿ ਵੀ ਉਸ ਕਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੰਮੇ ਪਏ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆ ਕੇ ਆਪ ਹੀ ਜਗਾ ਦਿੰਦਾ?
ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹ ਥੋੜਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਟਵਿਸਟ ਹੈ ਗੱਲ ਚ। ਉਹ ਬੜਾ ਸਿੰਪਲ ਦਿਖਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ। ਇਟ ਹੈਜ਼ ਹੈਪਨਡ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟੀਕਲੀ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਾਤ ਕਥੂਰੀ ਵੰਡੀ ਹੈ, ਸੁੱਤਿਆਂ ਮਿਲੇ ਨਾ ਪਾਓ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਨਿੰਦਰਾਵਲ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਨਾ ਮਿਲਣ ਕੋ ਆਓ।
ਨਹੀਂ, ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਹੈ।
ਹਾਂ, ਇੱਕ ਪਤਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ। ਆਈ ਵਿਲ ਟੈਲ ਯੂ ਦ ਅਦਰ ਵਨ। ਇੱਕ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਲੈਣ, ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਸੁੱਤਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਉਠਾ। ਯੂ ਆਰ ਸੇਇੰਗ ਅਬਾਊਟ that one.
That is one, and then there is another one.
ਹਾਂ, this is Guru Nanak's ਸ਼ਲੋਕ। ਦਾਤੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸੰਧੀਆਂ ਕਿਆ ਚੱਲੇ ਤਿਸ ਨਾਲ, ਇੱਕ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਲੈਣ, ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਸੁੱਤਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਉਠਾ। This is what.
Yeah, I think that's.
ਇਹਦਾ ਸਿਰਫ I can only, we can share an example that Guru Nanak was Jaganda. Within his family, he has 2 sons. They were with him in his communication right from very young age. But they never attained that because they were in communication with this, person who is enlightened. But someone else comes like Guru Angad, who is not even a part of the family, comes to him when he is about he meets him 1502. He meets him when he's about 20 something, and spends 7 years with him up to his demise, and he gains something. So this is something happens that they never thought that Nanak is a guru. They thought he's a father. They never taught him from that. They never got instruction from a guru angle. They thought, oh, he's our dad. But for Guru Angad, he was his guru. So this is a sort of thing, how I see it, that you might be with a learned person, but you have not attained because your mind never accepted it. But someone else comes from somewhere. He was in process, so he got it, and he's through. So it's very hard to say.
Yeah, so that is speaking to the receptivity of your own mind.
This is it's your personal effort, Ji. It's your personal
how receptive you are.
Yes.
But nonetheless, so Dilpreet, though you make a very, this is a very, I think this is a point worth considering and discussing, because as Paramjit Singh Virji is saying, Gurbani is really a framework, and within that framework there is a fair amount of choice. Because I personally think that I am liable to do practices within Gurbani that my temperament finds appealing. So someone might find Kirtan very appealing. Someone like me might find theology, of Gurbani, you're trying to understand the vichar appealing. Someone might find both appealing. My point is, subha jis tarah hunda hai, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ, and Gurbani offers you a way for just about every temperament there is out there. So it's pretty wide, on what you can do to do the sort of things that you do. But anyway, good interesting point.
No, I have one small thing to say. You may find Kirtan as appealing, I may find Simran as appealing, and Paramjit Virji may find as Vichar may appealing, and Gurjeet Virji may find as doing part as appealing. What do we mean? What is the end goal? That appealing is, at the end, Satgur nu sabko vekhda jeta jagat sansar, dithe mukat na ho gayi, jichar shabad na kare vichar. So, at the end result is, appealing is a way to get attached to it, but we need to understand and implement it, right? So, it takes us, as long as whatever way you get it, you take the medicine through mouth, you take the medicine through fruit, you take the medicine through injection, or somebody inject it in your blood, that is not, that does not, is as long as you are implementing Gurbani, the grace will come.
Yeah, I think we are all sort of agreeing to the point, basically. that it doesn't matter how you ingest the medicine,
Right.
as long as the outcome. And in matters of the spirit, it is very difficult to tell where another person stands,
Right.
in this journey. You are your best witness, I think. We are now at 9:50. Um, how do you want to proceed for the next 10 minutes? We've gone all around.
Yeah, no,
And,
well, I want to come back to one
Anji,
point here. A point is because we have brought in another key concept here without even talking about and we use the word grace, karam kiya gaya Gurbani ch. And
I
we.
would, in fact, Vijay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when we talk about nadar and translate it as grace, I have often questioned if that is the correct translation, because this is again a borrowing from Christian terminology.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that is something we need to even ask ourselves. Sanu hun aadat payi hui hai to use the word grace, as we use a lot of other English terms that we have freely borrowed from Christian theology. So the point is, I think that us, the people on KhojGurbani, who are making an attempt to unravel some of this mystery, should ask ourselves some serious questions around terminology. So is grace really nadar? Hanji.
And yes, you raised that point very well, and that was one of my concerns. The second very prominent word we use all the time, truth. Okay, truth is an English word. Such is a Punjabi word which appears right at the outset of Gurbani. To us, such is Akal Purakh. But the word truth, it has very different connotation, it has very different interpretation. But because that's English word, we are bringing that in our conversation that the God is truth.
And even that is a word that has been borrowed from Christianity.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, because that was the question that the Roman viceroy asked Jesus: "What is the truth?" Pontius Pilate asked him that question. So, Haji Gurjit Singh Biji, any thoughts? Dilpreet, do you have any further thoughts? Because I think we are reaching the end of our conversation.
Hanji Viji.
Haji, so we've gone around in a very free floating discussion today. Is there anything else you want to add? Do you think there are... So one thing that has come out of this discussion is that we need to at some point have a very good discussion around Mamma Jada Sankalpa Gurbani, the concept of mind. Maybe we ought to all come prepared with, from a Gurmat angle. What do we understand the notion of a mind to be? And the other also is the fact that we need to be extremely careful in how we are using our terminology in English.
Yeah.
I just want to, so I'm just passing out. So, Dilpreet, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think it is good, and we need to talk about this karam and grace and nadar, and what are the appropriate words for that.
Right.
Yep, I agree.
ठीक है जी. So can I give you 5 minutes back today? I mean, it's 9:55 almost. Yeah. And
Yep.
we can convene next week.
Yes, that's a good idea.
हाँ जी. ठीक है जी, फिर फतेह प्रवान करनी. वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.